I'm very happy and pleased to welcome our next guest, Barbara Frenkel. She's a board member at Porsche AG. She heads procurement in the board, and not unimportant for the Women's Summit, she's the first female board member in Porsche's history. Barbara, thank you so much for taking the time and being with us.
Yeah, pleasure to be here.
I just said, for first female board member heading or responsible for the field and the area of procurement. There have been easier times in this area. Supply chains are under pressure. How hard has your job been since you started?
So when I started, I actually thought we are through with COVID, we are through with semiconductors, but obviously it came differently. But it is my job to solve problems. So that is my task. And I have to say I enjoy it. I really like what I'm doing. And we are doing quite well so far.
So we've seen, the Ukraine, we're seeing tensions in Taiwan. There are sort of the whole idea of international supply chains where you source from wherever is getting a bit under pressure. Are you at Porsche thinking about localizing your supply chain, changing how you've done these things in the last few years and decades? Or is this just, going over and then we're back to normal?
I think there is no back to something we have experienced before. This situation, this volatile situation will last for a long time. So it's essential to come with the right mindset. So we are in for a long run and not for speed. Therefore, the strategy we have right now, I think is right. So we have partnerships which last for many, many years, trustful, reliable partnerships. And when you have to manage a crisis, you always do it in a team. So you don't do it on your own. And the team consists for me of various layers. So it's us at Porsche AG. It's not me in procurement alone. So we are teaming up with the colleagues from production, from engineering, from sales, from finance. And we all sit together and see how we can handle it. The next team layer is the Volkswagen Group. So despite that we are now an individually listed company, we still belong to the group. So we have a lot of common parts which we source together. So we have a joint strategy on how we manage a crisis. And the third level is obviously the suppliers. So we talk with them. So we don't decide by exclusion of the suppliers, we decide with them. Going forward, obviously, when I'm sourcing now for new models, we have a clear strategy. We decide in an interdisciplinary team what are our core competencies, so what will we do on our own, what will we source, and then the question is, where do we source? And for me, it is important that we evaluate potential supply chain risks when we place a new order. So already today we anticipate, do we have a risk where probably a component, a part for all model lines is at the same supplier? This is a high risk. So the next model needs to go to a different localization. Do we plan to bring everything in one country? Also not a good idea. Not only because of geopolitical tension or climate tensions or energy tensions. So just to spread the risk. So that is important for us. But that means also with reliable partners, they go with us this way. This does not necessarily mean that we change our partners, but maybe the country.
So Porsche is known in the automotive industry as a manufacturer that sources quite a lot of its parts, quite a high ratio. Listening to you, this is going to be maybe fixed a little bit here and there, but you're not going to change the overall strategy also in this regard, right?
At the moment, we see that our strategy is right, but with the transformation to electromobility, a lot of new technologies are coming, which we haven't used before. So meanwhile, yes, we produce the Taycan, our first battery electric car. So batteries is now something we source already, but the development is very fast. So we look into it and see where's our core competence of Porsche. So what do we want to keep in our hands? Then we do it for ourselves. where are we better off by working with suppliers? And sometimes we have this in-between group where we say we work with suppliers, but we want to be more involved than just a customer. So we partner, or sometimes we even put a financial stake in the company. Partnering is a success factor for us. We are still a small company, we are very successful companies, but still small, so we cannot do everything on our own. We sell our cars mostly outside of Germany, so when you sell a car which is now connected to your ecosystem, so for example in China, you need to make sure that the car is connecting to the local ecosystem, digital ecosystem. They don't use Twitter, they use WeChat. So you need local partners to make this integration into the car. So that is something where we go much more off than we have been in the past.
You said before that Porsche is transforming towards electrical mobility, away from combustion engines. Is this changing your job in terms of where you get your parts? Do you need new suppliers? Do you need to renegotiate new contracts? How big is this complexity that you're within this bigger transformation of the company?
So this transformation means for us, just to say some figures, in 2025 we want that 50% of the new vehicle sales is based on either fully electric cars or hybrid cars. And in 2030, our ambition is to sell more than 80% fully electric cars. So the transformation is very steep. This means that we find new suppliers for this technology. So that is one part. On the other side, everyone is saying, okay, the internal combustion engine is dead. But it still lives for quite some time because the electromobility, the transformation has a different speed in different countries. So we still need to keep our suppliers alive who do parts for internal combustion engines. So their business model needs to stay robust so that they provide us with the parts for a longer period of time. So one period is the time where we produce cars, but then we have also the after sales. 70% of all Porsche cars ever built are still on the road. So if you would own such a car and you need a brake pad for a model from 15 years ago, you still get it. So we need to make sure that our suppliers survive, that they transform their business model, and here also we help.
It's sometimes for people who aren't in the business or aren't at the control centers a bit hard to understand. But at Porsche, the supply chains that are under pressure mean that new cars, for example, are only delivered with one key because you don't have the chips. How have you ever experienced in your long career, also in the field, ever experienced anything as stressful as this at the moment?
No. So this is really a very unusual situation. These multiple crises overlapping and very complex crises, and at the same time, this overarching transformation. So speaking about the semiconductor crisis, this is not the first time that we had a semiconductor crisis. There were always some smaller shortages, but after a short period of time, then the shortage was gone. So I think in the beginning, when we experienced this, we thought the same. This is only temporary because of COVID, because we had to stop production in the beginning, but now that we are asking again for deliveries, so the supply will come up. We didn't realize that there's a shift in the industry. We have not understood how the semiconductor industry is working. So we are speaking of chips. So this is like we speak of a fruit basket. So in the fruit basket, there are apples and pears and strawberries. The same is of chips or semiconductors. There's a huge, huge variety. You have to imagine in a car, there are 5,000 chips in a car. And if there's a key component, a key chip missing, then you cannot build a car. So each chip counts. That's why we have, during this phase of getting an orientation in the crisis, we have looked into the situation, okay, what kind of parts do we get delivered? What is in these parts of chips? Can we use these chips in other components which are more essential? And that's why, there were some decisions taken, a chip from a key car into an essential chip to provide the car. But trust me, every customer got meanwhile his second key.
There is a big discussion going on. We touched upon it in the beginning, and we had it a few years back around battery production and sort of having it localized in Europe because otherwise you're dependent on other regions. Are you concerned that key components of the cars Porsche will build in the future, especially in electromobility batteries, for example, aren't built in Europe because it's too expensive or we don't have the expertise or whatever? Is that a concern of yours as a board member at Porsche?
So because of this immense transformation, we look very carefully how does the supply situation evolves and the demand situation evolves. So where do all the raw materials come from? What is the quantity? And when will be the peak where the demand is higher than the supply? So that is one thing we are looking into it. Second, the battery in an electric car is the most decisive factor of decarbonization. So the most CO2 you bring into the car, the most carbon you bring in the car is with the battery. So therefore, for us, it's very important that we see how this module is produced, where it is produced. So we need to have a clear commitment from our suppliers that they do everything to decarbonize the supply chain. But also, when we speak about sustainability, it's not just decarbonization, it's also the whole ethical and social way of producing such a complex module. So where does the cobalt come from? Where does the lithium come from? Is it mined in a social and ethical manner? So these are all things we are concerned with and we are involved with, and we go till the mine to look for ourselves if everything is according our standards. And speaking of where do we want them to produce, so at the moment, even so that we work with a big company with a head office in China, they founded a production site in Europe because a battery is a huge thing, and it makes sense to produce this battery close to where the car is produced.
You mentioned it before, Porsche is now an individually listed company, still part of VW. This was one of the biggest IPOs and stock exchange events in Europe in the last decades or so. Are you happy, are you proud with how it happened and what happened?
So this was a historic moment for us. And when I'm now speaking about it, I still get goosebumps. It was a big milestone in the history of our company to achieve to be a listed company, a standalone company, because this gives us much more autonomy. So this gives us the ability to be much faster, much more flexible, to achieve faster the goals we set for ourselves. And also, I have to say it was a very short and tough period to prepare for the IPO. And then at the moment when it happens, that's a huge relief. And the day when we became a listed company was a day where the market environment was not very positive. So therefore it was even more emotional that in these challenging circumstances we made quite a good appearance.
Oliver Blume is now at the head of Porsche and at the head of VW. How have you experienced him as a manager, as a CEO, as a colleague? What's your idea and picture of him at the helm of both brands?
I'm working with Oli since he joined Porsche. And it's very impressive how he leads the company. So I appreciate him a lot of how clear and how focused he is. And in a very hands-on manner how he manages our company. So he's very organized, very structured. At the same time, he always is positive. So no matter how hectic it can become, he's always the calm centerpiece of the team. So I'm very proud to work in a team with him. I enjoyed a lot, and yeah, I'm looking forward to the next years to come.
You yourself have been in the industry and at the company for quite a while, and you took on leadership challenges and responsibilities quite early on. Now you're the first female board member at Porsche and in the history of Porsche. Is this something, sort of this status also as a woman, as the first female in the board, is this something that means something to you? Is it nice to have? Is it important as a role model? What's your idea about this fact?
So when I was nominated, or when I became a board member for Porsche, this was something I never have dreamed of when I started at Porsche. And now being in this role, I know there is a lot of protection coming to me as a woman in the board, in the car industry. And I'm aware of that, and I hope that I can be an inspiring role model. I felt in the past, or during my years in the automotive industry, when there were barely women, there were only a few, now we are becoming more and more. It's much easier when you see someone who has achieved a position or who has assumed a function, that it's easier for you to imagine, oh, I can see it can be done, so maybe it's also a possibility for me to get there. So what you can see seems to be possible. So that is something I'm aware of. And of course, I'm a woman, that's obviously, and I enjoy it. But being in this team, it's also about diversity. And diversity not only in the sense of gender, but also in the sense of perspective. And that is something Oliver Blume promotes a lot, that the teams are diverse, that people with different background, with different experience, with different knowledge, complementing the team, because this gives the best results. Mm.
Porsche, from its heritage, from sort of strong cars, is often maybe not by decision seen as a rather male-dominated brand. Also the faces that Porsche used. This is changing a little bit. I know that Porsche is also trying to get away a little bit from this. Do you think this is important? How hard is it to change a brand that's so strong, but also so traditional and so rooted in its history? What's your stance on this?
So first of all, and I have to set it straight a little bit.
I figured.
Our vision is that we are the brand for those who follow their dreams. Mm-hmm. And that includes everyone. So male, female, background, we don't care. We are the brand for those who have big dreams, and Porsche can be part to fulfill these dreams. So that is, for me, says everything. When we speak about male-dominated company, then let's look into the figures. There are countries where the majority of our customers are still men, that's true. But there are also other countries, for example, China, one of our biggest single market, where almost 50% of our customers are women. And they love our brand, they love our cars. So here we are doing already a good job, and that is something where we learn, and we place these ideas also in other countries to broaden our customer base. So that is on the customer side. On the employee side, which is equally important for me, we also have achieved more and more women joining the Porsche brand. So meanwhile, more than 30% of our apprentices, so those where we educate the young people, are women or girls, more than 30%. So this is the pipeline coming up. In the whole employees, I think we are roughly 15%, also in the management, a little bit more than 50%. So we are getting there. Is it fast enough? Not according what I want to achieve. I'm also open on this.
Last but not least, do you have a favorite model out of the Porsche collection? What's your favorite car that you currently or produced in the past?
So the good thing is that I'm working in a toy factory and I have the opportunity to drive all our models. But the one I'm driving currently, I love a great deal, is a 911 Cabriolet, lava orange.
Oh, well, thank you so much for taking the time and being with us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.